tiny homes, a creative design solution to housing insecurity experienced by community college students. So what's the problem? Why are we doing this? The General Assembly of the United Nations in 1948, they stated in Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that everyone has a right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, and housing. Yet, the San Diego Regional Task Force on the Homeless found 8,576 homeless individuals in 2018. Of those, there were 928 homeless youth between the ages of 18 and 24, which is the average age for a college student. So where did they find these homeless youth? We see them, the majority, in unstable locations. We see them on streets, vehicles, sleeping in parks, in hand-built structures, under bridges, in woods or outdoors, and in abandoned buildings, bus stations, transit stations, or in other unsheltered locations. When we break down unstable location, because that isn't very clear, we see that the majority were couch surfing, or in transitional housing, emergency shelters, hotels, motels, jail, or other unstable. What's the impact on higher education? Well, the Wisconsin Hope Lab, their Real College Survey in 2019, nearly 40,000 students and from different community colleges, from 57 different community colleges. And they found that in the previous year, 19% were homeless and 60% were housing insecure. What does that mean? Well, trauma related to toxic stress, such as that of not knowing where one may sleep, can affect a student's ability to fully engage in the educational process. So the theoretical framework about what our Architectural Design 1 students are doing really falls under Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At school, professors can't expect students to be their best selves. They can't reach self-actualization, reach their fullest potential, if they're missing the most basic physiological needs: food, water, and rest. The purpose is to research homelessness in higher education and investigate the experiences of community college students facing housing insecurity to develop creative design solutions. We know that there aren't any student housing options for community college students in San Diego County right now. The concerns being the lack of funding and land availability and student safety and liability management. There are other community colleges in the state that are looking at more permanent solutions like student housing. But these, they're not cheap. Solutions like this at Orange Coast College, it costs them $89 million, right? So what if, we want to do something, but we can't afford it right now, or at least we don't have those funds. And that's when we started looking at safe parking lots and looking at organizations here in San Diego, such as Dreams for Change and Jewish Family Services, that offer safe and secure parking spots for individuals to spend the night. And it's only during the night. They have to leave at a certain time in the morning. They offer one hot meal. They offer sanitation stations, so portable restrooms. And then it helps build a sense of community. There are case managers here to assist these individuals, to help them with job training and job skills. For example, how to prepare a resume, how to do a job interview, and then they help them seek permanent housing, because that's the ultimate goal, right? During the pandemic, the need for affordable housing has increased exponentially. I mean, we have so many people, especially with the stay-at-home orders, who can't work. Their jobs have closed, the businesses have closed down, or maybe they have a family member who is ill that they have to care for. Maybe they're ill themselves and they can't work. So many people, there are some support in place when it comes to rent being due and mortgages paid, but some of those resources are going to end soon. So a lot of families are trying to figure out what to do. Again, these type of lots, they provide case management, employment preparation, food program assistance, financial planning workshops, housing specialists, because again, the goal is to go into permanent housing. It is not the ultimate solution. It is not. It is just a Band-Aid, right? But in an emergency, right, what do, right? If you had a gash in your leg, you're going to put a tourniquet to stop the bleeding until you could get to the hospital, right? Sometimes you need something in the meantime until you can get some more permanent, stable support. So this is when, we started looking at AB 302. We talked about it in this class, which it was the assembly bill that required California community colleges to allow homeless students to park in designated spaces overnight. Now that bill was introduced in 2019, and as of right now, it's dead, right? That legislature, it went through a number of amendments, and ultimately the assemblyman who authored that piece of legislature, there were so many changes, and he felt that those changes stigmatized students who were homeless, where he decided, you know what, I'm just going to hold off on that. I'm going to work with the governor's office, and then I'm going to propose something new. And we haven't seen the new legislature just yet, but he was starting to think of, what can we do for these students who are experiencing these issues? He was aware, he's from Palo Alto, Northern California, and he was aware of these students. They would share their stories about not having somewhere to sleep at night, or having to find a place to sleep near campus. He shared a story about a student on campus who campus police, campus safety told him he couldn't park there. He couldn't park on campus. So he kept parking a little further and a little further from campus because he kept being told he couldn't stay there. And then ultimately, he was in an area that kept being further and further from campus, further from restrooms or from showers, and they vandalized his car. He was harassed when trying to sleep in his car. So, it's not safe out there. So again, we're hoping that some piece of legislature that may be similar to this be introduced soon. And what about those students who are experiencing housing insecurity who don't own a vehicle? So what about them? The countless number of those just trying to find somewhere to sleep at night. And that's where the idea of these tiny home villages came from. And that's why we're starting, to look at, as architecture students, what can we do at a scale that's feasible to present as a potential solution? And maybe it's a location on campus where we have different tiny homes to create this community and sense of belonging. And so over the last couple of years, we presented some different ideas as to what that could look like. Tiny homes, again, by definition, is a dwelling that's 400 square feet or less in floor area, excluding the lofts. They're small, they're affordable, they're sustainable, transportable, low maintenance, and promote a simple lifestyle. These could be designed to be completely off the grid so that you're not dependent on infrastructure. So you don't have to be hooked up to water lines or electricity, right? So there are options to make them work in various spaces. So students were looking at, okay, if we were to look at something like this, so say in the future there's legislature that says that students can sleep on campus, and we're looking at parking spots, and we want to support students who do not have a vehicle to sleep in. We want to provide them with something. Well, looking at the County of San Diego's parking design manual, a parking space dimension, it should be at least 9 feet wide by 18 feet long. Here are just some sample floor plans that the students got the chance to study and look at and learn from before designing their own. So we see on the left, right, where you can accommodate 2 students on a single parking spot that's 8 feet by, or excuse me, a single tiny home that's 8 feet by 16 feet. And then on the right-hand side, again, we see multiple students, in this case 3, that can be accommodated in one parking spot. And how much would it cost, for those who may be wondering? So a tiny house that may be a little bit bigger than what we just saw, approximately would be $30,000, and that includes labor and materials. So the entire cost to build a tiny home, and that's again an estimate because this is for 200 square feet. The tiny house, the floor plans we were just looking at are smaller than that, so it would be less than 30,000 roughly. Right. So what was the research question for this whole project, right? How can tiny homes designed and built by students address housing insecurity and provide safe, affordable, and sustainable residences for community college students? The idea, the goal is for students not only to design them, but ultimately one day build them. Right now we cannot. due to the pandemic, but that doesn't mean that we can't partner with builders, that maybe students, can share their designs with local tiny home builders to get this done now until we can be on campus again and build them ourselves, with the guidance of local builders.